think that Americans and in the West, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have it all figured out yesterday, what we're going to do in the future. And breathe easy. You don't have to figure it all out or have it all figured out today. The ministry of young adults today is all about reaching 18 to 30-year-olds for Christ and training leaders to do the same. Well, we just got back from a time in Irvine, California, where we hosted the West Coast Leaders Conference for young adult ministry leaders from across the West Coast of the country. And man, this is a vibrant community where God is moving. There is so many churches starting young adult ministries, strengthening young adult ministries. We were able to worship together, to have roundtable discussion. We were also able to hear from different lead pastors like Pastor Eric Geiger from Mariners, where God is moving on Thursday nights every week. We were also able to hear from Dr. Glenn Packiam from Rock Harbor Church. That was one of my highlights. And our friend Dominic Doan shared on doubt and faith and deconstruction. And you guys, God is on the move. There's a hunger in young adults, but also in young leaders as we just aim to equip discipleship pathways in the local church, on college campuses. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks for participating in this podcast and in giving to this ministry. God is on the move, and just had to quickly share a couple highlights. Thanks, fam.
You don't have to have it all figured out, and here's why. Check out today's question.
Man, we're going to unpack an answer around where career and calling collide. Zach, FYI podcast friend and listener, asked this question.
We are here with a new friend. What's your name?
My name is Zach.
This is Zach, and Zach has a question for the podcast. What is your question?
How do you know, if your career is what God is calling you to do, or if it's just something that you're thinking of doing and, it's not necessarily on God's path?
That's a great question. I think a lot of young adults are asking that question. Calling, career, do they intertwine? Is this something that I'm passionate about, or is it something that God's calling me to, and kind of navigating and sifting through the decisions of life?
Yeah.
So, well, that's a great question. We can't wait to unpack that on the FYI podcast.
We're back on the FYI podcast. I'm Josiah Keneally.
And I'm Micah.
We unpack your questions as the viewer, as the listener, and at live events, whether it's camps for young adults like the weekend, whether it's at Emmanuel Young Adults in Minnesota, whether it's at a pop-up college campus, coffee shop, conference, or camp. We are delighted and really glad that you're here for this conversation. Wouldn't you say, Micah, that this question of what am I going to do for vocation? What am I going to do for work? Is it a big one in the lives of transitioning?
Is that even a question?
How big is it? Is it in the top 5?
I think it's probably yes, of course. I don't know what order people want to put that in, but I think this is a question all humans ask themselves if you're a follower of Christ.
What was I made for?
What was I made for? What am I called to do? What am I supposed to do with my life? And I think this is where the terminology calling can be, I don't know. It can be messy, I think, with a lot of people's interpretation. But I think this question is actually where does calling and career collide? Where does it actually take place? And I would kick off this episode of saying, we're all called to be children of God.
Amen.
We're called to respond to that calling.
100%.
We're called to make disciples and go to the ends of the earth and multiply. We're called to live our faith out loud. We're called to live this like we have one, because we do have one with an eternity, that we have an opportunity to impact. So I think we're all called.
Yeah.
So call and calling, that's how I'd interpret that part of that before we even kick off our verse today. And then career is how I think that's the fuel of part of the calling that complements your natural hardwiring to execute the calling that God has for all of us. But the way in which we do it looks different due to our vocational jobs.
I like the words assignment.
Okay, you can take assignment.
When you're in 3rd grade, you could have a take-home homework assignment. When you're 17, taking PSEO classes, you could have an assignment for chemistry. When you are 22, doing Uber Eats as a side hustle. It could be an assignment. When you are a wedding photographer, Friday night is God's assignment for you,
Mm-hmm.
or the assignment of your temporary mission.
Yeah.
And so I almost view it as like, I love the umbrella of the Christ follower calling,
Mm-hmm.
that we are all called to the all hands on deck mission of Jesus. That calling is an invitation to go and make disciples
Yep.
wherever we go, whatever we do. And then there are these temporary assignments that could be a short-term mission trip. It could be the assignment of being a college student this year. It could be the assignment of an internship, an externship.
Okay, would you agree or disagree with this thought of a majority of our assignments are actually opportunities for character building?
Yeah. Yes. And I think that there's a temporary jersey that you're wearing. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like a season that Shohei Ohtani was on the Los Angeles Angels for a few years as a
Mm-hmm.
rookie, cutting his teeth in the MLB,
Mm-hmm.
leaving Japan, coming to the MLB. Huge signing, huge deal. Well, his contract ran out, and then he signs with the Los Angeles Dodgers across town, New Jersey, new assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Same game. And I think that it's like you're wearing a jersey for a season.
Mm-hmm.
You're a plumber or a welder for a season, and then you might be a dad.
Mm-hmm.
You might be a mom. You
Mm-hmm.
might be, and so there's multiple facets
Yeah.
to our calling
Yep.
and our assignment. And Zach, this is like such a great question. I want to research. We've talked at length with Ken Coleman,
Oh, yeah.
America's career coach. We're going to pull up a clip from the Young Adults Today podcast to hear what Ken Coleman has to say about calling and career. Or is there meaningful work, fulfillment, and purpose that people that the vast majority of men and women could experience?
Yes. Yes to both of the questions. There is a season where you will have to suck it up, pull your boots up, and grind it out. Okay. So I don't want to miss that. I love how you set that up, but I actually think it's not one or the other. It's going to be both and. Okay. So the awareness piece that we were talking about, using my daughter as an example, and the get clear assessment, find the work you're wired to do, does give someone a methodology, an actual mechanism, a tool to figure out what is meaningful work for me. What does it look like? What is the work I'm wired to do? Right. And by the way, the work you're wired to do is very simple. It's where you can spend most of your day using what you do best to do what you love to produce results that you care about. And I just say that again because this is the definition of a dream job. It's not, about status and money. It's about the chemical feeling, the true chemical feeling going through your body because you have established what flow looks like.
Love Ken. Isn't that good, babe?
It is so good. We enjoy Ken. And I think he's challenged us a lot in our career and calling and how we're naturally hardwired, and to uncover and discover more of who we are and what Christ has called us to do. I think those complement each other very well. So, yeah. The verse of the day, another C word, Colossians, right?
Colossians, career, calling, and collision.
Oh,
Go
man.
for it.
Good grief. Let me read it to you. Colossians 3:23-24 says this: Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as though you're working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. And I think even in those jerseys, those red shirted jersey seasons where we feel like we've been red shirted, or we feel like we're on the injured list, or we're the water boy or the water girl
in the farm system,
in
the
the
minor leagues.
Yes, and we're
the
just
never-ending internship cycle.
Yes.
Where you need more experience and more education. And how do you get either without both?
The resume building opportunities. But yeah, I think taking all those seasons and not taking them for granted, but also realizing that this is an opportunity for me to grow, to serve, to understand, to heal, to develop, like whatever those seasons look like, is truly sitting there working though, as we're working for the Lord, because He is the reward at the end of the day. Like he is the reward, and he has asked us to be a part of the story, and it's whether or not we're going to respond to that well when we're in those seasons, or whether we're going to sit there and wallow in our own self-pity. So
I'm going to link in the show notes of this episode description on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're tuning in, a couple links to some conversations that we have had with Ken Coleman,
mhm.
because I found his Get Clear career assessment so helpful.
Yeah.
And that's in one of his books. He's shared some insight offline, online. Dear friend, grateful for him. He's been
Mhm.
nothing but a blessing to us and this community. But reasons why you don't have to have it all figured out.
Ooh.
Because Zach, here's the truth. I think that Americans and in the West, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have it all figured out yesterday, what we're going to do in the future. And breathe easy. You don't have to figure it all out or have it all figured out today. Here's why. Number one, trust today and trust tomorrow. You may have it all figured out today, right now, but the future is certain. It's actually the future is uncertain for all of us. We live in the adaptive age, and I pulled a job report that estimates that Gen Z individuals may hold approximately 17 to, this is UZAC, 17 to 18 jobs across 5 to 6 different careers during your lifetime. This reflects a trend towards a greater job mobility compared to previous generations. For instance, Gen Z employees could change up to 10 times their jobs between the ages of 18 to 34 based on US students surveyed. In contrast, baby boomers, so your grandparents,
they're like the one and doneers, aren't they?
They are. They often remained in their first job for over a decade.
Oh man.
And that shift underscores Gen Z's emphasis on job flexibility and their adaptive ability navigating diverse career paths. This is from Claire Madden, who's a next gen expert. And I think that is what I synthesize that to say is like, be adaptable. Take the pressure off. That's one of the first reasons that you don't have to have everything figured out today.
Oh man, that's so good. I think the second one is you can be faithful to Christ in a lot of different jobs. I mean, you could be plumbing toilets and love the Lord. You could be scrubbing toilets and love the Lord. You could be traveling the world and doing things for photography and still love the Lord in that process. So I think what we fail to recognize sometimes is that there are jobs that Gen Z is currently doing, and I think millennials have adopted some of these things and are, dabbling in it too, is that there are jobs that exist now that did not exist when the baby boomers were deciding where they're going to work for the rest of their lives.
Isn't it 2/3 of the jobs that Gen Alpha will work don't even exist yet in 2025?
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
give yourself some grace.
It's just wild. I mean, we played a game, and I say this to say we played a game probably 8 to 10 years ago with your dad. And one of the questions was, if you could do any job in the world that doesn't exist yet, what would it be? And your dad came up with a phenomenal answer. He was like, I would sell tickets to rides to the moon. And I think we're there.
Yeah, I think it was
Like,
Katy Perry just flew in outer space for like 12 minutes.
well, and that's what I think is crazy. I was just like, wow, like we're almost there. You know what I mean?
Commission job, you'd do great.
Can you see that? Can you imagine? Oh my gosh. But I mean, it's those types of things that haven't yet been invented. So I think the overwhelming sense of opportunity is there. And I think what Zach is getting at is like, this is what I'm passionate about. So for example, I know he's passionate about football, right? So he's played sports. So
He's
it's like
also passionate about photography and very talented at it.
yes. So it's like, do I become a football coach? Do I start at a school level? Could I ever get to college? Could I ever be NFL coach? Is that something that God's calling me to? Is it photography with sports that kind of meld together? I don't know. I'm not trying to answer this for him, but I just know a little bit about him. So I think when we have passions and we have side hustles and then we have hobbies. So I think that's where career calling and my word I use was like hobbies could kind of blur the vision of what do I do for 40 plus hours a week and call it my career.
Mm-hmm.
because I know me, I love to create. And even taking Ken Coleman's career assessment, like my
Mm-hmm.
number one thing is create. Like I need to create daily.
Mm-hmm.
And through creating, it could be digital content, it could be like stuff through Canva, it could be anything. It could be painting a wall, painting
Yeah.
a fireplace out behind us. It could be redecorating. It could be something like that. But that's not my full-time job in a sense of like going into people's homes and demoing them. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
Chip and Joanna Gaines with a fixer-upper type mentality, but would I love to do that? Yeah, but I don't feel like I'm called to do that. That's an outlet of a hobby for me. So I think with a generation that has so many opportunities is to identify what's like a hobby that I enjoy for fun that I don't really get paid for, but I love doing, you
Mm-hmm.
know? I mean, you like to run. It's like you're not getting paid to run though. But I was in a season where I was personal training. I got paid to get in shape, stay in shape, and help get other people in shape. And I'm
So
like, this
good.
is the best job in the world. And that's evolved into like, oh, now I spiritually coach people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Teach them like, how do you pray? How do you make your faith your own? Like it's so different, but there's still a teaching and creating component that I get to use daily. So
I was just with Pastor Mark Batterson at the Dream Factory of National Community Church in Washington, D.C., and he said that if God had a research and development department in his kingdom, that's the one that Mark would apply for. And I think
he'd probably be the HR person of that whole department.
oh, dude, like in his church, they have a room and they call it the Dream Factory. And I think a few God dreams were birthed in me, even being there
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
being prayed for. And sometimes you just need to get in the room. Zach, sometimes you need to build a network before you need the network.
So good.
I think the other thing about calling and excitement is take some of the pressure off of needing to have it all figured out today and take a season of research and development.
Hmm.
Maybe it's take a second shooter spot and be willing this summer to
That's
take
good.
a second shooter spot and earn some cash and see if you like it. Maybe dabble in website development, pick up a few side hustles.
Yeah.
Start offering to edit podcasts
Mm-hmm.
and host podcasts for people or like do the back end of podcasts. You could make some great money doing that. I think that if you can see a need and meet a need, there'll
Yeah.
always be value for you in teams. Like any team that Micah and I have served on is either we're building something or we're serving somebody else's vision. When we get on a team, we want to bring as much value in our department and beyond our department that we possibly
Mm-hmm.
can. Why? Not to us, but to God be the glory. But like, let's, let's serve.
Yeah.
Let's hold other people's arms up
Mm-hmm.
and let's add value anywhere we can. Any other thoughts for Zach or for the listener, babe,
Yeah.
who wants to know if something is their career that God's calling to them
Yeah.
or that they're choosing?
Oh man, I just want to alleviate the pressure. Sometimes God lets you choose. He does. Like I think sometimes when you have two great options in front of you, he lets you choose and he blesses both, either or, and that's where free will can come in of like, okay, Lord, like I'm passionate about this and this, but could those two things marry each other at some
Like,
point?
what if it's both?
Yes, and it can be both. But what does that look like? Is it two half-time or part-time jobs? Is it a gig? Is it a full-time job and something you do on weekends? Is it something that you love to do but you don't really get paid for yet? And that's where I would say the fourth thing I would do that kind of ties with your number three is don't be afraid to ask. I know it sounds really old, but people probably still do it, is job shadow somebody. Follow somebody around
Wow.
for a day. And this is what I learned. So, coming into my freshman year on a college campus, I was like, I want to go into exercise science. I want to be a personal trainer. I want to do X, Y, and Z. Like, I love working with athletes. I love sports. And if not that, I want to be a sports announcer because I just loved being a statistician when I was in high school for basketball and football. And I did a job shadow of somebody, and it was an AT, which was an athletic trainer.
Yeah.
So I went to like this big high school game at the Bowl in Bismarck, North Dakota, and I job shadowed this gal. And what her job was essentially was kind of to be the first responder of an athlete who gets hurt on the field. And I was like, oh, I do not want to go in exercise science for AT, for athletic training. I want to be a personal trainer and prevent some of these injuries so they are strong enough, they are fast enough, they have the agility and the ability to execute what they do need to execute on in the stadium arena, on the court, in the field, whatever sport they're playing. And I walked away from that and I was like, nope, I don't want to do that. And that saved me probably, I don't know, 1 to 4 years of school, $13,000 to $40,000 worth of debt for something that I did not want. Now, my job shadow took 3 hours of a football game.
Yep.
And I knew that I'm like, okay, God, you're not calling me to this. Like, that's not what I want.
Yep.
And it was like 1 degree off within that same field of desire, but it was totally different.
Wow.
So I think even with whoever is wrestling with like, do I want to be a photographer? Like what you said, become a second shooter. Know if you even like this, because photography is not just photography.
It's editing.
It's editing. It's knowing your software. It's knowing your camera. It's understanding lighting. It's traveling on weekends. It's, all those different things. It's hiring a second shooter once you become the main shooter. It's you become like an actual business that you're actually functioning in the tax world that you're going to have to sign up for. It's not a 501c3. It's a
LLC.
LLC. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think of. So don't be afraid to be like, hey, do you have 4 hours person that I want to job shadow? And if what you do bores me to death, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't say yes to that degree.
Yeah. Because it's like this. We're trying to take the pressure off of you because that's what Jesus does.
Yeah, totally.
His yoke is easy. His burden is light. And God wastes nothing, Zach. And so, dude, here's the deal. Is God wastes nothing. There's value in today, the ministry you're involved in, the work that you're doing. And then there is skills, research and development, things that you're learning today that will help you down the road. So there's a value in now, and there's a value in the next, and the next isn't better or preferred. There's value now, and there'll be value 2.0 in the future. And so we're just cheering you on. We're cheering the listener on. Go for it. We're with you and behind you. God's with you, and the applause of heaven helps you, like Louis Giglio says, not strive for acceptance, but live from acceptance.
That's good.
That's the note we want to leave you on. This is the FYI podcast. In young adult ministry, a lot of times it feels like, well, you're maybe alone or on an island. And so Young Adults Today exists to help you build community in ministry, to have those friends that can last a lifetime, and then really to provide catalytic events like camps for young adults, conferences for leaders, as well as resources, including this podcast, but also a regular blog on youngadults.today, as well as books. And we have a book bundle. I'm excited to let you know about Reaching the Next 13 Ways Churches Can Engage Young Adults, about Next Gen Now, to really understand and engage the Gen Z generation, and then equip the saints, which is really, these are all collaborative books that we wrote in community, and they're best read in community as well. And so I would just encourage you to pick up your book bundle. While supplies last, they're 50% off. That's right, 50% off of these book bundles that are designed to help you thrive in your leadership, to grow. And really, again, when you can, for us, write these books in community, but also read these books in community, I think you'll be able to go further. I pray you're able to go faster, but visit youngadults.today/book, as well as the link is in the show notes to pick up your copies of these book bundles. Hallelujah!